Seeing all the work pay off and you getting better at something you're interested in is the best feeling you can ask for. Going to the gym and lifting more weights. Learning a technical skill that has no use in the world, but it makes you feel good. Or finally getting that promotion or degree certificate you have been working towards for years. Improvement feels great, but we can go a little overboard sometimes thinking about improvement.
So it's like you have the sharpest sword in the world, but no idea how to use it, and you're running out of time.
This analogy from Joey is when we get sucked into that productivity black hole. We watch loads of YouTube videos, read blogs, read articles, listen to podcasts, engage in forums like Reddit and Discord on Twitter, but we don't actually do anything. The world of self-improvement makes lots of promises on the surface, and lots of them are to do with happiness. But what is happiness? Is it what we see on TV or from social media with the celebrities and public figures? No, but it doesn't stop us thinking about it and comparing ourselves to those people. If we see it, we're going to think about it. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I can use the same example by saying, don't think of a purple elephant, and the first thing you think of is a purple elephant. Because you've seen it, you're going to think about it. But thinking about it on its own isn't a bad thing. It's what you do with it that matters. It's when we start thinking about it too much is when it starts to become an issue. The fear of not being enough, not doing enough, not being successful enough. So we start to look at productivity. Maybe if I am as productive as those people, or maybe more productive than those people, I will be successful. But Nathaniel brings up a really good point.
And the way we talk about productivity carries within it a little lie, which is this sort of promise that you'll be happier and more fulfilled if you accomplish more things. And it just doesn't work that way.
The idea of having machine-like levels of productivity, watching things at times 2 speed or faster, guilty. Watching videos that don't have any fluff in them, guilty again. Making sure you get every piece of value in the content that you're watching to make sure that you can get the success you're looking for. But what even is that success in this context?
And by the way, quickly, going back to the whole secrets to success thing, I think that success in that context largely means wealth. Basically, how did you get rich? And is there anything I can do to do it too?
Loads of successful people from past, present, and probably in the future have shared or will share their schedules, where they travel, the long hours they work, the routines that they have to get them to where they are. And lots of people previously and present look at the amount of hours worked, thinking that the more hours you work, the more money you get. Now, we're in 2021, and hopefully, you know that's not true. Now, having said that, we still look at our time, we still track our time, and it is important because we need to make sure that what we're spending our time doing is actually useful, but we can certainly go overboard, as this story demonstrates very well.
I once dated a guy who was so obsessed with productivity, he would literally put on a timer during sex for maximum efficiency so that he could get back to his tight studying schedule as soon as possible.
So however you want to optimize your time, those of us in the productivity world want to make sure that we're actually getting value out of the time we use. So when we consume content, we want it to be new to us at the time. We want it to be original, maybe giving us a different perspective. Or maybe it could just be some food for thought, thought-provoking content. Or it could be entertaining. The question we should be asking ourselves, but we typically don't when we're in this productivity space, is it worth watching another video on this topic? Well, a lot of us will watch a video, not get much value, but we might get value in the next one. So we watch another one, and then we watch another one, and the cycle continues. Insert wasted productive time. Some creators are original, bringing new ideas, new perspectives, or just thought-provoking topics into conversation. But most of the time, videos, blogs, articles, podcasts, pieces of content are just repeating the same points with different words. This is where the idea for content consumption for entertainment or relaxation kind of just disappears. When was the last time you watched a video, read a book, article, listened to a podcast normal speed, just to enjoy the experience? What is the productive ratio of watching content for value and notes, and then for entertainment and relaxation purposes? This is where the concept of plain productivity comes in. Are you being productive, efficient, effective? or all of the other words that have slightly different meanings but could quite easily be interchanged with being productive, which makes things very easily misunderstood. Seth Godin, in a blog post, wrote about jargon versus lingo, and jargon being intentionally off-putting. He writes, "Jargon is a place to hide, a chance to show off, a way to disconnect. Lingo, on the other hand, allows us to feel included." Now, what I get from that is that it's about the intent, the frameworks, terms, words are used in. What is the intent, and how do we communicate that intent? And in this case, it's about communicating what productivity and all that productivity encompasses, what it actually means, and explaining that to other people. When we speak, we often use our hands and use hands to create gestures, to emphasize things, or to give importance. And there are lots of different types of gestures. And gestures can be used as a form of redundancy, because if words are misheard or misunderstood, gestures can help emphasize or reaffirm what they think they may have heard. When speaking, our tonality has a big impact on the meaning of what it is that we're trying to say. Things like the rate at which you speak, the volume perceived by the listener, the changes in emphasis on words and/or pauses, the pitch, so how high it sounds and how low things sound, and even how clear the sound is. Written communication can be affected by word choice, jargon, lingo. They can also be affected by the direction at which you're talking. Are you talking to the reader? Are you talking about a character? Then you have consistency. Are these sentences and words consistent with the point or emphasis you're trying to give with the written word? And then punctuation. So gestures and tonality can actually change the meaning of what it is that you're trying to say, potentially making someone else perceive what you've said slightly differently. And this can also be said for text and written communication.
And look at what language really is. In which case, one thing that we see is that texting is not writing at all.
Text has evolved from speech when it was turned into writing. Writing was being used as a guide to speech. So people were speaking in presentations as they wrote. Then people started writing as they speak, and this is where text started to bring in this new form of written communication. How a word is used, written, spoken, or expressed through gestures can change the meaning of the entire word, sentence, speech, or presentation. So every word has a language surrounding it. So how do we learn the meaning of the language and understand what is actually going on?
If you want to learn a language efficiently, then you need to give that language life.
So practice, act, do. Be involved in living in the process of the words that you're actually trying to speak. Now, much of the times when we hear things, especially in self-improvement and productivity, it can be spoken in riddles, in frameworks, or in very broad topics that we don't really understand and can't get to grips with, so we sort of just nod and move on. This is why I think plain language is crucial when we're sharing this sort of stuff.
Plain language is proven, empirical evidence, proven writing and design strategies that make it easy for people to find what you're looking for, understand it when you find it, and then know what the heck to do with the information now that you have it.
And that last bit, know what to do with it, that is where I think we get stuck, or at least I do. It requires thinking. Not the overthinking most of us do, but intentional, purposeful thinking. When we consume something, we need to think, and we have two systems. One system is very quick at giving a response, but often makes mistakes. Then we have the second system, which doesn't make as many mistakes because it relies on long-term memory, but it's much slower and requires effort. Now, when we are faced with something we don't know, we don't understand, we can't get to grips with, we don't want to make a mistake. So we need to think, but it requires system 2, and that is effort. And that is where we can turn off. The satisfaction of consuming things we already know means we don't have to think that much, so there's little effort put in. It also reinforces what we already know, confirmation bias. So to know what to do with something, we need to think, to learn, but that requires effort, and effort could be potentially uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable isn't fun. Fun is related to happiness and being happy, which is what self-improvement is all about, right? So if we're learning and we're uncomfortable, that's not self-improvement.
If you really want to learn and get better at anything, have any chance of becoming an expert, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Because thinking takes effort. It involves fighting through confusion, and for most of us, that's at least somewhat unpleasant.
So being productive means knowing what to do with things, putting effort in things, thinking about things, and learning things, developing new skills. But also balancing that of the different meanings when the word is used. What tone was used, what gestures were given, and what punctuation was there or was missing. And what was the context? Many of us are unconsciously competent at a lot of productive things, meaning we don't know we're actually good at something that's making us productive until we see a video or we see something and we go, hey, I do that, I must already be productive. Yet we still go looking for answers to questions that we're not asking. As Mark Manson said in a recent newsletter, our awareness of problems has compounded, whereas our awareness of solutions has not. We are finding more problems in consuming information and thinking about all of these different topics, rather than finding solutions to the issues we already have. Productivity has multiple meanings, multiple problems, multiple solutions, and learning theory is only going to get us so far. There will always be someone that thinks you're doing it wrong, but maybe they just have a different meaning. So instead of watching another YouTube video, finding an answer to a question you didn't actually ask, how about you get off YouTube and do something productive?